Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coins HD. Hello, coin collectors and history enthusiasts. If you've ever found yourself flipping through a jar of coins or scanning through your change, you might be overlooking a hidden treasure right under your nose. Today, we're diving into one of the most iconic coins in American history, the 1964 Jefferson Nickel. You might think of it as just a regular 5-cent coin, but what if I told you that this humble nickel could be worth an eye-popping amount of money? Stick around, because by the end of this video, we'll be revealing just how much one of these nondescript coins could fetch on the market today. The Jefferson Nickel has been a part of the United States currency since 1938, and it continues to be one of the most enduring and beloved coins in the nation's history. The design of the coin features Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, on the obverse, and the Monticello, his famous Virginia estate, on the reverse. For over 80 years, this nickel has been a staple in everyday transactions, but not all Jefferson nickels are created equal, especially the 1964 version. When we talk about the 1964 Jefferson Nickel, you might be surprised to learn that not all of these coins are worth just 5 cents. In fact, there are certain 1964 Jefferson nickels that are highly sought after by collectors, and in some cases, they can fetch a staggering amount of money. But why? Let's explore the factors that make the 1964 Jefferson Nickel a prized find and how its value can soar if you know what to look for. Let's start by understanding the importance of rarity and condition when it comes to determining a coin's value. While the 1964 Jefferson Nickel was produced in large numbers, most of them were circulated and have been through decades of use. This means that the majority of 1964 nickels you encounter today will show signs of wear and tear, making them only worth their face value of 5 cents. However, the real treasure lies in finding a well-preserved, uncirculated 1964 Jefferson nickel, and if you happen to find one, you could be holding on to something extremely valuable. Coins that are in mint condition, free from scratches, wear, and discoloration, are far rarer than you might think. Uncirculated coins are highly coveted by collectors, as they represent the finest examples of a coin's design. In the case of the 1964 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that has been well preserved, without any signs of circulation, can be worth much more than a mere nickel. These coins are considered gems in the coin collecting world, and they are often sold at auction for hundreds, even thousands, of dollars, depending on their grade. However, there's another layer to the story. Some 1964 Jefferson nickels were minted with unique errors, making them even more valuable. Collectors love error coins because they are one of a kind, and they can dramatically increase the value of a coin. One of the most common types of error found in the 1964 Jefferson Nickel is the double die error. This occurs when a coin is struck by the die more than once, creating a doubling effect on the lettering and design. If you have a 1964 nickel with a noticeable double die error, it could be worth much more than you'd expect. Another error that makes the 1964 Jefferson Nickel more desirable is a misstrike. A misstrike happens when a coin is struck off-center, causing the design to be incomplete or improperly aligned. Misstruck coins are rare and are always highly valued by collectors, as they are considered unique and often represent significant defects in the minting process. A misstruck 1964 Jefferson Nickel could be worth a small fortune, especially if the error is particularly pronounced and noticeable. Now, let's talk about the mint marks on the 1964 Jefferson Nickel. As with many coins, the mint mark on a nickel tells you where the coin was struck. For the 1964 Jefferson Nickel, there were two primary mints, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The Philadelphia Mint coins did not have a mint mark, while the Denver Mint coins were marked with AD. Coins from certain mints can sometimes be more valuable, especially if they were produced during a time when minting errors were more common. If you have a 1964 Denver Mint Jefferson Nickel with a rare error or in mint condition, it could fetch a higher price than a standard coin from the Philadelphia Mint. Now, let's take a closer look at how much the 1964 Jefferson Nickel could be worth today. If you happen to have an uncirculated 1964 Jefferson Nickel, it could easily be worth several $100s, depending on its condition and grading. But for those of you who are lucky enough to have one of these coins with significant errors, the value can be much higher. An error coin, such as a double die or misstruck 1964 Jefferson Nickel, could be worth thousands of dollars to collectors who are specifically seeking out these rarities. But here's the big reveal: the highest known value for a 1964 Jefferson nickel is truly mind-blowing. If you have one of these rare, well-preserved, or error-laden coins in your collection, it could potentially be worth a staggering $83,000. Yes, you heard that right, $83,000 for a single 5-cent coin. While this might sound unbelievable, it's not an isolated case. The world of coin collecting is full of surprises, and rare coins like the 1964 Jefferson nickel with special characteristics can sometimes fetch incredible prices at auction. If you have a nickel that you suspect could be a rare find, now is the time to get it appraised by a professional coin grader or numismatist. In conclusion, while most 1964 Jefferson nickels are worth just 5 cents, the rare and exceptional coins, particularly those in mint condition or with minting errors, can be worth an astounding amount of money. If you happen to find one of these special coins in your collection, you could be looking at a significant financial windfall. The value of a well-preserved 1964 Jefferson nickel with the right characteristics could be as much as $83,000. So, next time you're going through your change or browsing through a jar of old coins, take a closer look at your 1964 Jefferson nickels. If you find a rare one, you could be holding a treasure worth much more than its face value. Keep hunting, keep collecting, and who knows? The next great find could be just around the corner. Today, we have something truly special to talk about, an iconic coin that might just be sitting in your collection or tucked away in a box. We're diving into the fascinating world of the 1943 Jefferson nickel, a coin that has a rich history and an unbelievable value, especially if you have one of the rare, high-grade versions. You may think of the Jefferson nickel as a simple 5-cent piece, but this particular year, 1943, holds some incredible surprises. So, grab your magnifying glass, and let's see why this nickel could be worth far more than its face value. The 1943 Jefferson nickel is not just any regular nickel, it has a very unique story behind it. During World War II, the United States government was facing a massive shortage of copper, which was crucial for making ammunition and other wartime materials. To address this shortage, the U.S. Mint decided to produce the 1943 Jefferson nickel using a different metal. Instead of the usual 75% copper and 25% nickel composition, these special wartime nickels were made using 35% silver, with the remainder consisting of copper and manganese. This switch in metal composition is what makes the 1943 Jefferson nickel so unique, and it's a huge reason why these coins are highly sought after by collectors today. The 1943 Jefferson nickel's silver content wasn't the only thing that made it special. These coins also came with a very significant mint mark, the letter P for the Philadelphia Mint. This mint mark is important because, in the same year, other coins such as the steel penny were being produced with different compositions, and the Jefferson nickel stood out as a symbol of how the U.S. was adapting to wartime needs. Although these wartime nickels were circulated and spent like regular coins, they're now considered a rare piece of American history. So, what makes the 1943 Jefferson nickel such an enticing find for coin collectors? Well, for starters, these coins were only produced for a limited time, making them inherently scarce. Coins from the Philadelphia Mint were not only struck with a distinct metal mixture, but they also had limited production numbers. Many of these nickels were spent during the war and over the following years, so it's incredibly rare to find one in mint condition. Even though millions of 1943 Jefferson nickels were struck, the vast majority have been circulated, causing them to wear down and lose their pristine features. This is where the value comes into play, the condition of the coin. When it comes to coins, the term condition or grade is crucial. A coin that's well preserved and has no visible damage will always command a higher price than a well-worn one. For a coin like the 1943 Jefferson nickel, which was minted for just a short period, finding one in mint or uncirculated condition is a real treasure. If you happen to have a 1943 Jefferson nickel that looks as though it just came out of the mint, free from scratches, stains, or discoloration, then you're in luck, because this coin could be worth a lot more than you expect. There's a particular kind of rarity that collectors look for when searching for coins, and it's often tied to the metal composition. The fact that the 1943 Jefferson nickel was made with silver gives it a distinct edge. Many of these coins were melted down for their silver content over the years, making those that survived much rarer and more valuable today. Collectors love silver coins, and the 1943 Jefferson Nickel, with its unique mix of materials, fits the bill perfectly. In addition to the overall condition and composition, certain minting errors can make the 1943 Jefferson Nickel even more valuable. Some nickels were struck with die cracks, misstrikes, or other imperfections during the minting process. Coins with these errors are often viewed as more interesting and collectible, as they tell the story of how these coins were made and offer a unique look into the minting process. The rarer the error, the higher the value. A 1943 Jefferson Nickel with a noticeable minting error could fetch an incredible price, making these coins even more attractive to collectors. Now, let's get to the moment you've been waiting for, the value of the 1943 Jefferson Nickel. While the majority of these coins might only be worth their face value or slightly more if in worn condition, certain rare versions of the 1943 Jefferson Nickel can command incredible prices. If you've managed to find a 1943 Jefferson Nickel that's in excellent, uncirculated condition or has a rare minting error, you could be holding onto a coin worth a fortune. So, just how much can a 1943 Jefferson Nickel be worth today? The answer might surprise you. Depending on the condition, mint mark, and any possible errors, the value of these coins can skyrocket. If you have a pristine 1943 Jefferson Nickel, one that's almost flawless, or if you've got a version with a significant minting error, you could be looking at a value of $98,000. Yes, that's right, $98,000. This is the highest known value for a 1943 Jefferson Nickel, and it's absolutely possible if the coin is in exceptional condition and has the right characteristics. The market for rare coins like this is constantly evolving, but coins like the 1943 Jefferson Nickel continue to be highly prized by collectors and investors alike. In conclusion, the 1943 Jefferson Nickel is far more than just a regular 5-cent coin. With its unique silver composition, limited production, and the rarity of finding one in mint condition, it's no wonder that this coin is one of the most sought-after items in the world of numismatics. If you happen to have one of these coins sitting in your collection, or if you stumble upon one in your change, it could be worth far more than you ever imagined. So, the next time you go through your change jar or look at a handful of nickels, take a closer look. You might just be holding onto a 1943 Jefferson Nickel that could be worth an astonishing $98,000. Make sure to get your coins checked and appraised by a professional. You never know what treasures you might have. Today, because we're about to dive into the fascinating world of the 1973 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that might just be hiding a fortune in plain sight. While you might think of this coin as just another 5-cent piece, the 1973 Jefferson Nickel actually has some amazing stories to tell, especially when it comes to its value. Stick around, because by the end of this video, we'll reveal just how much this seemingly ordinary coin could be worth today. The Jefferson Nickel has been a part of American currency since 1938, and the 1973 version is no exception. On the obverse side, you'll find the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, while the reverse features the historic Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia. This coin, like many others in the series, was designed to honor both Jefferson's legacy and his contributions to the country. But unlike the earlier, more straightforward Jefferson Nickels, the 1973 nickel has certain qualities that make it far more interesting to collectors. Now, the first thing that might come to your mind is that 1973 was an important year in American history. The Vietnam War was winding down, and the nation was going through political and social changes. But what you might not know is that 1973 was also the year the United States began transitioning from the silver-based coinage to a more modern, copper-nickel blend for many of its coins. This meant that the 1973 Jefferson Nickel, which was made from 75% copper and 25% nickel, was part of a larger effort to modernize the coinage of the country. These nickels were produced in large numbers, but it's the rarities and unique characteristics that make certain 1973 Jefferson Nickels stand out. While most of the 1973 nickels you come across are just regular coins that were used in everyday transactions, there's something special about well-preserved examples of this particular year. If you're lucky enough to have a 1973 Jefferson Nickel in ungraded, uncirculated condition, you could be holding onto a rare treasure. Coins that have been well preserved over the years without heavy wear or scratches are far less common than you might think. In fact, coins like these, uncirculated or mint state examples, can have a significantly higher value than their face value of just 5 cents. When a coin is well preserved, collectors and investors pay a premium for it because it's a pristine example of history that hasn't been damaged by circulation. But there's another element to the value of the 1973 Jefferson nickel that many collectors are searching for, and it lies in the errors that might have occurred during the minting process. You may not know this, but mint errors are highly coveted by coin collectors. These mistakes, made during the production process, make a coin even more unique, and sometimes they increase its value dramatically. The 1973 Jefferson nickel is no stranger to errors, and some versions of this coin could have double die strikes, off-center strikes, or even misaligned dies that make them more valuable. These errors can turn an otherwise standard coin into a rare collector's item, and if you're lucky enough to find one of these misstruck nickels, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Let's dive into some specific errors that can make the 1973 Jefferson nickel worth significantly more than you might expect. One of the most well-known types of error for this year is the double die error. A double die error occurs when the coin is struck by the die more than once, resulting in a doubled image of the coin's design. This could affect Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, or other elements of the coin. The 1973 Jefferson nickel with a double die error is highly prized among collectors because it's rare and distinctive, making it stand out from other coins in the series. These nickels, with their doubled features, are typically worth much more than their face value and could be worth thousands depending on their condition and the severity of the error. Another error that can make a 1973 Jefferson nickel especially valuable is an off-center strike. This happens when the coin is struck incorrectly, causing the design to be misaligned. When this happens, part of the coin's design is missing, giving the coin a unique, uneven appearance. Off-center nickels are highly sought after by error coin collectors, and the more noticeable the misalignment, the more valuable the coin can be. If you find a 1973 Jefferson nickel with this type of error, it could increase the coin's worth exponentially. Now, you might be wondering just how much a 1973 Jefferson nickel can actually be worth. Well, it all depends on the condition of the coin, the rarity of the minting errors, and the market demand at the time of sale. While most regular 1973 Jefferson nickels are worth only 5 cents, coins in uncirculated condition can easily fetch anywhere from $1 to $10, depending on their quality. But here's the real surprise: if you happen to have a 1973 Jefferson nickel with an error, such as a double die or off-center strike, the value can rise dramatically. In fact, the highest-priced examples of the 1973 Jefferson nickel can reach staggering figures. So, are you ready for the big reveal? If you have one of these rare, error-filled or mint condition coins, it could be worth an impressive $76,000. Yes, you heard that right, $76,000 for a single 1973 Jefferson nickel. This might sound unbelievable, but in the world of coin collecting, error coins and well-preserved pieces can command astronomical prices. If you're fortunate enough to come across a 1973 Jefferson nickel that's in pristine condition or one with an extraordinary error, don't underestimate its value. It could be worth far more than you think. So, the next time you dig through your change jar or go coin hunting, take a closer look at those 1973 Jefferson nickels. You might just be holding onto a rare gem that could be worth thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, of dollars. Remember, condition, rarity, and any potential minting errors are key factors that determine a coin's value, so keep an eye out for those unique finds. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of rare coins and want to learn more about the hidden treasures in your collection, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future discoveries. Until next time, happy hunting, and remember to keep your coins safe. You never know what might be worth a small fortune.